Black and white with both pieces. It's I'm sure it's a very unpleasant surprise, and now it's time for him to show the character.
Hello and welcome back to the BBC's coverage of the 1995 Intel World Chess Championship. It's between world champion Garry Kasparov, who clearly felt he was on top as the week began, and the young Indian challenger Vishy Anand. There's been more exciting chess in New York, and with only one more week to go, the tension and excitement have been mounting. Now, last week saw an amazing reversal of fortunes, as with the score at 4-all at the start of the week, Vishy Anand seized the initiative by snatching victory from Kasparov in Game 9. While Kasparov replied with blistering attacks in Game 10 and 11, which left the young Indian trailing by 1 point. It was then 5 points to 6. But by Friday, although Kasparov was keen to maintain his momentum, Anand had recovered his equilibrium and defended himself vigorously in Game 12, allowing the world champion only a draw. So, at the end of the week, the scores were Anand 5.5, Kasparov 6.5. Well, at the moment, we'll be taking you through the week's games with the help of our experts, Bill Hartston and David Norwood. But here we have Kasparov beginning the week 1 point ahead. Vishy Anand still had everything to play for. So what happened on Monday? And Bill's going to take us now through Game 13. Bill.
Playing with the white pieces, Anand really needed to. He's coming in slightly late. Kasparov at the board first when he's appointed. He's smiling now. That's Anand's mistake. You know, Nigel Short said to me about 4 or 5 years ago, when Kasparov comes up to an opponent at the board, he smiles and offers the handshake. He said, "You mustn't smile back." It's the spider welcoming the fly into his web.
Didn't do Nigel any good though, did it? What happened to him?
Merely not smiling isn't enough.
Yeah, you also have to play a couple of good moves besides avoiding smiling.
Now, what the right tactic for Anand this week was what? To go very sharply for a kill? Or
yeah,
what?
he's got to win today, basically.
Right.
In this game, this game's today. He's got the white pieces. He needs to regain.
And Kasparov had in the previous game with black played a new variation of the Sicilian, the Dragon Sicilian, for the first time in his life. And at least has had a chance to prepare something against it this time.
They'll have spent all weekend trying to find a very good reply to this new defence that Kasparov's adopting. You've got to be very versatile in these matches, so Anand should be well prepared.
I wasn't really expecting Kasparov to play the same variation again. The Dragon, very sharp thing, something he hasn't done before, has great surprise value. But
yeah, the surprise value is repeating it though in a way, because you think, oh, it's only going to be a one-off.
that's slightly unusual. White usually does something to stop the black knight coming to this square, but Kasparov thought a bit about it and then decided not to bother anyway. And so we get back onto the same position that they had in the previous game in which Anand was white. I think he castled first in that game. This one, he delays castling. Now, if white castles queenside here, king to this square, they'd be back on the earlier game. But instead, he played something different. And this looks like a ghastly move to me.
It's a very odd. Like, it's been played before, but it's not renowned as being a very good idea.
Brings a black pawn nearer the centre, and the centre's the important thing in the opening. So it's a move any beginner would be advised against playing. So he must have some idea behind it.
We hope.
Whatever it was, he thought for about 25 minutes on this move, so you feel that things may have been going slightly wrong or slightly out of his preparation. Anyway, we're going to rattle through this game because there's plenty of good chess this week. Now an exchange of knight for bishop. Oh, the other beautiful thing
this is a great
game.
move by Kasparov, e5, this pawn move.
And it leads to the first en passant capture of the match. The pawn's moved 2 squares. Another pawn could take it if it had only moved 1 square. So it does take it just as if it had only moved one square, takes it in passing.
Which I think was a very bad move by Anand, because now he's opened up the position in front of his king.
His king is
Kasparov clearly inviting that, wasn't he? Must have been.
Absolutely. I think
Yes.
Kasparov would be delighted with this position, because White's king's stuck in the centre, and it's not clear what it's going to run to.
But now if the white bishop takes this pawn, a black rook comes here and I think wins the bishop rather
The
quickly.
F8 rook goes and wins the bishop,
So the bishop must retreat. And now that's a really venomous move. It opens a diagonal from the queen down to here.
Well, that's the
stops
key.
white castling king's side. Also, the advance of the pawn stops white castling queen. So Kasparov said this is the first time in his life he's stopped his opponent castling both king side and queen side with the same move.
It's a great move. White's in trouble here.
Sorry, so is my touch screen.
And all because of that pawn en passant?
Well, no. See, the big problem is the queen is just cutting out, preventing White from casting.
And now, we had a touchscreen failure there a moment. Now, White's king has absolutely nowhere safe to go. It's trying to get away from the pressure of the black rooks, and then an exchange of pawns, and now a killing move. The knight comes in here. The knight's attacking the white queen. White could exchange queens by bringing the queen up here, but after the queen's come off, black's knight comes down to where the queen was, gives a check, wins a bishop. Can't do that. Natural thing to do is take the knight. He's really got no alternative. Rook gives check, and this is a very nice little combination by Kasparov. Another rook check. Bishop comes in the way. Queen check. The white king just gets hounded to death. Rook takes the bishop. Another rook check. White loses his queen. That didn't happen. Go back to the position we actually have in the game. Black knight has just moved here. White really has nothing he can do about it. So Kasparov coming back now.
Oh, it's a disaster.
And resigned.
What do you want?
There was really nothing to do.
What do you want? C3.
Anand's shell-shocked,
No,
isn't
rook on C8. Instead of C3, rook D1. And then queen D4. Now rook D2, you also have resource.
Never drop D1.
Maybe I should play C3 and take on E6, slightly better, but I can't win because rook will come in D2. Easy damage. C3 after C3 is dead.
Can rook D1 and then play at D6, no?
No, C3
Yeah,
then
okay.
yes, slightly better, but
As always, the little conversation when Kasparov wins, not when Anand wins.
Kasparov enjoying those postmortems when he's on top. Kasparov's convincing win had him talking confidently after the game too, showing no sign of the ill temper we saw last week, but he said he wasn't intending to sit back now and take it easy.
I'm going to prepare myself for game tomorrow. Also look at the, on some lines in today's game, just because my opponent made quite a, chose quite a rare continuation, and I do it always and analyze the game, whatever is the result of the game, just to make my judgment about the position that arose during this game. And again, as I said, I will prepare myself for tomorrow, and I hope that the excitement will go on.
But what advice, if any, did he have for Anand?
I think there's not much you can do. Nobody can help you. It's just for you to go and play and just to adjust to a new situation when the strategy has changed. And it's probably time to play chess, just to forget about anything else.
Well, now let me bring in Danny King from New York, who joins us in New York now. You've been watching the match all through. Danny, after that first game, where were we?
Well, I mean, that was such a disaster for Anand. His confidence just had completely gone. His spirit looked broken. He looked very tired indeed. I think all these decisive games from last week really took a lot of energy from him, and he just looked gone.
And there he is, Bill Hartston, with this sort of patronising chat from Kasparov to the press after that game that he'd lost. What's it like facing a man like Kasparov in that situation?
It's bad enough having just lost the shortest loss with White in a World Championship match since 1892. That's what that game was, 25 moves.
David?
Oh, it was horrible, that game. That was probably the worst prepared I've ever seen Anand for a game. And I agree with Danny. He just looks shell-shocked. Like, you cannot allow that to happen.
So a disastrous start then to the week for Vishy Anand, with Kasparov now leading by 2 clear points. Had Anand lost his confidence? Well, let's see what happened in game 14, Bill.
Well, in earlier World Championships, they usually had a rule that a player could take a time-out after a loss, or whenever he liked, but this one has a faster schedule of 4 games a week, and no time-out. So Anand had to come back the next day, play black, and it is quite remarkable how he played. Very difficult after. You won't have slept well after a game like that.
We're looking at one of the great games now, are we?
I think this is the best game of the match.
Really?
I thought he would have collapsed after the game before. You know, when an accident like that happens, as Bill said, you don't have time to compose yourself. But he really played some chess in this game.
We love the way they take so long on the first move. Highly predictable move.
But Anand's first move was not so predictable. D5.
Well, that's never been played in a World Championship before, so if Kasparov predicted that, he was doing well.
It's never been played by Anand before. It's Kasparov's only met it twice before, and once of those was on a TV chat show against David Letterman.
It breaks all the opening rules, because black is bringing his queen out early on. Now, when you're teaching beginners, you always say never bring your queen out early on, because it gets hit. And you notice that white's got a quick lead in development, because he's bouncing pieces off the queen.
And another strange-looking move here, the bishop coming out, stopping white's bishop from coming to this square, but rather gumming up black's pieces, apparently.
Well, apparently, look at the bishop on f8.
But
that's a committal move, pushing the pawn forward. We see why he wants to do it. He wants to reinforce his knight on e5. But it's very double-edged, because, you know, there's a bit of draft around white's king now.
whenever you push pawns forward, you leave weak squares behind them. But Kasparov clearly feels he has enough space to get away with this.
That's a good challenge, the bishop on f5. I like.
And now black's bishop looks very strange out here. It's got no way back. White only needs to attack it with a pawn, and he'll lose it. But that stops a white pawn coming up here. The opening, in fact, turns out very well for black.
Well, White's moved his white square bishop 3 times, which seems to put him a bit behind in development. He's messy. I don't think Kasparov has a clue what he's doing here.
It seems quite planless.
He's just moving these bishops around without any plan at all.
And after this move, after taking the black knight, he offered a draw, which Anand thought about.
Yeah, Kasparov said he was surprised that Anand even thought about it at this stage. He should have, if he'd have been confident, he said he would have replied immediately and just carried on.
And black's a little bit better. Black has chances of getting a knight to this square, which would give him a little bit of an advantage.
Yeah, because the white pawn on f4 is rather weak.
See, black's pawn can chase the white knight back, but if black ever gets his knight to a comparable square, you get that weakness created by this pawn move. So black is undoubtedly a little bit better in this position. Kasparov trying to create play on the queen side. And that nice little manoeuvre by the black knight, it's not doing anything at the moment, but there it is, it's coming, it's been heading single-mindedly towards this square. Now, if white does nothing, black will just gradually take over the position. So, a little nudge on the queen side.
White does have a bit more
and this
space.
Move.
This is
now,
a great...
this is the move of the game. You suddenly move your knight where you can't move it. That knight can just be taken by the black pawn. Now, I suppose the idea is if the pawn takes the knight, it opens the diagonal for white's bishop to take the rook. I think white would probably recapture on this square first with a pawn, attack a black knight, take the rook next move. I
think this is just Kasparov trying to randomise it. He realises he's been slowly outplayed, so by throwing the knight in, he's really setting the game on fire. If pawn takes knight, then white would recapture with the f-pawn, I think, immediately. And I was analysing this position, and it looks like Kasparov has some very good counterplay. It's amazing he can just give away a piece.
I'd have taken that knight almost without thinking. You know,
that's why you're not there, Bill. You see, it's like you're here.
Kasparov said it was the best move afterwards. But Anand feels that the knight's going to have to go back sometime. So rather than enter into this randomness, he moves his queen away. And now, a really vigorous move. There's a real fight for the initiative going on here. Pawn coming up. And now, when the knight recaptures, the knight is threatening this pawn.
Like white's got a lot of pawn weaknesses. You see the pawns on h2, f4, d4. They're all sort of, hopelessly weak. But he does have this attack against the Black King, especially the f6 square.
And now the rook's coming in, well, I think there is a threat to take this bishop. There's
And then
also a
bishop
threat
takes
to-
f6 afterwards. It's devastating for white.
threat to this pawn as well, on the left, which my touch screen is not reacting to.
Yeah, rook c7 is a really good fighting move.
Now the knight coming back to attack the bishop. Bishop attacks the rook. Now all white has to do is get this bishop out of the way, and his knight can come in here with mate. So, black's next move, pawn up. If white takes with the pawn, then takes with the bishop, knight in there, mate. And by now the spectators and the commentators were getting rather overexcited, and their shouting seeped through into the supposedly soundproof booth.
Madness. But it's madness on the board as well. That's what's so funny about it. It is just madness here. Like, no one has a clue what's going on.
Well, ignoring the attack on his own bishop, Kasparov moved his bishop out, exchanging a pair of bishops, and queens came off as well.
Yeah,
And
black can't capture the bishop because obviously rook would capture the bishop on g7 and give mate pretty quickly against the Black King. Like, Kasparov's done incredibly well. He's done a real Houdini trick here.
The position has just totally changed. We had a position that was much better for black, and suddenly an exchange of queens, and it's turned completely. The trouble is that there's a black rook attacking the white knight now, and the bishop defends it. The trouble is black has now found that this pawn is a weakness. He can't move it because he loses his bishop. And meanwhile, white's threatening to take it.
It's not clear where Anand goes wrong in this game. He'd look like he had such a great position.
Should have taken the knight, I told you. Never refuse free gifts from a world champion. Now the rook coming in, which does at least have the benefit of saving this pawn, but after white's next move, pawn coming up,
I think this is a sign
rook
now that
exchange.
Anand's in terrible trouble because the key now is the bishop on g7, which has just nowhere to go, and it can't even drop back to f8 because then the pawn on f6 would fall. So black's almost playing a full piece down in this position.
He's trying to get activity with the rook, but Kasparov's rook just came over, attacked this pawn. There's no decent defense to that pawn. Black's bishop is completely stifled. White's knight is dominating this side of the board. Black's tied, completely passive. There's nothing useful for his rook to do. His knight's tied to the defense of this pawn. He's going to lose this pawn. The position really is quite hopeless. With his last move, with that rook move, that was White's 40th move. White had reached the time control. Black still had his 40th move to play. That's the last move for black before the time control. And the position really is not very good. He's trying to get activity with the rook. He's attacking a bishop, which is defended anyway by the knight.
You can't play endgames a piece down, which is effectively what Anand is here. The
What's he doing there? Kasparov.
That's very strange.
Very
Kasparov
bad
is
behaviour.
Sort of leaning over to look at Anand's score sheet to make sure that that he's right about the 40 moves having been played. The Yugoslavs used to cheat like that. Various not all the Yugoslavs. Some Yugoslav grandmasters used to have a habit of writing down an extra move on the score sheet.
Well, that happened to me last year. I lost the game because I thought I'd made 40 moves and I lost on time and I was cheerfully sat there.
There was a great Yugoslav player who used to do this trick, and when you got to move 39, it looked like 40. He would expose his short score sheet freely, get up and walk off, and then when his opponent lost on time, he'd sit back, rush back to the board and tell him.
The German did it against me.
Yeah, Kasparov's taking that pawn. And now White has a passed pawn in the centre.
You can tell he's doing well the way he stomps off as well.
Stomps off at move 41.
He's so pleased with himself.
Leaving Anand sitting there to survey this wreck of a position.
Well, Anand's a full pawn down. His bishop can't move. Kasparov's got all the activity.
But both players had been short of time from about move 30 onwards in this game. They'd had about a minute left per move compared with the normal 3 that are allocated. They'd had to play the last moves in a hurry, and in that spate of rushed moves, Anand just saw his position just completely disintegrate.
It's an odd feeling when you've reached the time control and you realise in the last couple of minutes you've thrown away the last 4 hours of play It really is about, and that's exactly what Anand's thinking now. I've thrown it all away.
You can see it all on his face. Very sad.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he resigns. A bit early, I think. You could play on a bit in that position, but it is quite awful.
He tends to give the world champion the benefit of the doubt when he resigns.
Was it salvageable? It was.
No, it was gone. Completely gone.
So, another win for Kasparov, who had this to say immediately after the game.
There is an element of unfairness sometimes in chess because, you know, I don't think he deserved to lose today, but you can't judge, you know, whether there is the sadism or whatever, you know, just, it's, chess is the very tough psychological warfare, you know, and it's, as in any warfare, you have winners, you have losers, and to lose even after the good battle, it's, that's an element of whatever it is now, and it's extremely tough for psychology of the player because you are on your own, and you can't blame, you know, anybody when you lost a very tough game in the time trouble because, I mean, it's up to you to make a decision. It's up to you to take all the consequences.
Well, Danny King, I mean, then we had Kasparov after that game, which he'd won so effectively, or effectively telling Anand he's bullying him into defeat, didn't he?
I'm sorry, I didn't quite catch that.
I don't know whether you heard, we just ran to Kasparov there after that game, that second game we won in a row, telling Anand, effectively, you know, tough psychological warfare this, I'm going to bully you into defeat. That's what it sounds like.
Yeah, it seems as though Kasparov is beginning to give Anand a lot of advice after the games, and I don't think that bodes well at all. But, you know, this game was extraordinary.
What do you mean by that, Danny? What do you mean by that doesn't bode well?
Well, I mean, Kasparov is a little bit cagey after the games, but I mean now he's so confident that he's giving Anand advice after each game. You know, he's saying, oh well, he should be playing like this against the Dragon, or you know, he should have prepared better, or his advisors are telling him the wrong things. Well, I don't know. It's not terribly magnanimous somehow.
It's not the done thing, but what about the effect on Anand?
Well, I think Anand must be devastated. You know you're in trouble when Kasparov starts advising you. That's the thing, when your opponent advises you. But yeah, I think Anand's
running his lap of honour before his opponents finished the race.
Exactly, and waving at him as well.
OK, well, Kasparov's second win this week put him 3 whole points then ahead of Anand. Now, Bill, tell us about game 15.
The air conditioning failed at the beginning of this game, causing a 2-hour delay. The air conditioning in there supposedly soundproof, not quite booth. 2-hour delay. Players came back, 16 perfunctory moves in 40 minutes and agreed a draw.
Oh, one more game left. What happened in that? Game 16?
Game 16, 20 moves, agreed a draw. I think they both felt they've had enough chess this week.
Extraordinary. Well, now, we're joined from New York by Grandmaster Larry Christiansen, who's been following the match closely. Larry, is it all over, frankly?
Well, I think it's probably all over, but Gary, I think Vichy's interested in going out with a bang, not a whimper. So I think coming Monday, he'll give it the best shot he has and try to go out in style.
What are you exactly? I mean, is there, in a sense, now that he knows he's so far behind and there's all to play, there's nothing to lose, do you think he will play in the way that many people expect him to play? The sort of fastest move in the East and all this sort of stuff. You know, where's Anand gone? That player we were so excited about at the beginning of this match.
Yeah, I hope he's talking to his chess advisors, not financial advisors. I think he will come out fighting, and you know. Vichy, maybe the pressure's gone. You know, the young Vichy, the quick Vichy, the super fast Vichy. Hopefully, he'll make his appearance here.
What have we seen of that? Vichy during the match so far?
He's not there. We're seeing like Vichy, 20 years older or something. I mean, he must have built up such a database in his own mind of variations and super variations. He just got tangled up and sort of chess muscle bound.
What do you think, Larry, of the way Kasparov is behaving?
Well, when he wins, he's a great guy. Great guy to be around. He's ebullient. He's charming. It's Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. When he loses, it's also actually quite a spectacle and amusing. But
How, Bill Hartston, do you think, looking right back over it now, over all the 16 games, how is Anand playing?
He seemed to be playing well in the first half. I think he just completely misjudged the match. I think he was psychologically underprepared. He was technically overprepared. He's played a lot of bad ideas he shouldn't. Looking back on the whole thing, I think he will feel that he's missed a great opportunity here.
David Kasparov, what's his chess really been like? I mean, he's been winning, but has he been playing brilliant chess?
Well, he's playing a match. The first 10 games he was nowhere, but after that, to give him credit, he got his team together. They found some fantastic new ideas and gave Anand too many problems. And it was Anand's team that couldn't cope with it. You know, he's played a very good match, Kasparov.
But after that disappointing week, Anand was asked by the watching press whether he now felt like chucking in the sponge.
I think I might have one more shot at it, I'd say.
So, one more shot at it. Danny King, where do you think Anand is now? What's the right strategy for him on Monday?
Well, as Larry said, maybe the pressure's off him, so he can go for it. But I fear, because the pressure is off him, he will just go down. And Kasparov is just building the whole time. He can do no wrong. You know, even in this game 14, where they had this time scramble, Kasparov fought back brilliantly, absolutely superb game. You know, he can do no wrong now. And I fear that Kasparov, if Anand does try, Kasparov is just going to wipe the floor with him.
Bill, what does history suggest? I mean, has anyone ever come back from 3 games behind?
Yes, Karpov won 3 games in a row against Kasparov.
Can be done.
10 years ago, it can be done. I think on Monday we're in for a very good game. I think Anand will have had the weekend to get over the trauma of these losses. He desperately needs to convince himself that he can still play great chess, and we all know he can. And with the white pieces, I think he will give it a good shot. He will play a proper game. He will try to win. Kasparov will also be trying to win with black. I think we're in for
Larry, I think you're still with us. Let's look right beyond that. Let's just remember to assume, and maybe we're wrong. Let's hope we're wrong. It's good chess next week. But if Kasparov does turn out to keep the World Championship, is he beatable? I mean, is this guy going to be there forever?
I think he is beatable, and they have some very young and maybe even older customers who will really give him a good fight. I mean, Kasparov was not 100% convincing in this match, and I think even he would admit that.
David, even if Kasparov wins decisively on Monday, they'll still play through the week.
Yeah. And I think Anand just has to get to in his own mind that he's played a good match, because whether or not this time he'll be back to play Kasparov.
Danny, finally, would you give Anand a chance next week?
I'm afraid I don't. You know, he's actually very upset indeed with the problems with the so-called soundproof booth. And in fact, he was saying that he's had problems with this throughout the whole match, right from the early games. There was one moment where in one of the early games, you can actually hear the analysis from the commentary really clearly. And he was in a dilemma. Should he complain about this? You know, should he upset the organisers? You know, he's having real problems here, and I think he's a bit upset.
Thank you, Danny King. Thank you, Bill Hartston. Thank you, David. And thank you also, Larry Christiansen in New York. And that's where we leave it this week, with Anand on 6.5 points. But Kasparov well in the lead with 9.5. He still needs another point for a clear victory. 10.5 will give him a clear victory. 10, of course, he'd keep his title. We'll be back with all the news from the final week's play and a roundup of the whole match next Saturday at 11:50. Until then, from all of us covering the Intel World Chess Championship, goodbye.